Who are these other people with my ancestor on these pages? Are these your ancestors who have been sitting on a microfilm roll for 160 years waiting for their name to mean something to someone again? If you have ever traced a Black or Creole or formerly enslaved ancestor backward through the American records, you already know what a wall is in genealogy. And that wall is probably 1870 for your family. This was the first federal census taken after the emancipation, and it is the first time that for many of us, our ancestors show up in the federal record with a first and last name maybe attached to them. Before 1870, the record almost completely closes, so your fourth grandmother might appear in a previous census as nothing more than a tick mark under a column labeled female slave, age 24 to 35, with no name attached. So she's in the record, but she's not named. There is a federal record set that bridges this for us. The government created it between 1865 and 1872 through an agency it set up to oversee emancipation. So it captured the information of millions of formerly enslaved people during the years that the census was not reaching. It was in between these two census times, and it captured them by name. So for most of us who have Black or Creole or enslaved ancestry, we may have never opened these records. They're kind of intimidating. I was intimidated by them as well. But today I want to show you how I've used them. I'm going to use an example from my own family from Natchitoches Parish in Louisiana as the example, because my third great-granduncle I found in the documents, and I want to just share a little bit about how I did that so you can do it too. I'm Danielle Romero, and you are listening to the NYTN podcast, where we talk about American identity and family stories. And I think this is episode 9. I don't know how many episodes we're going to do in this first season, but I think we're on 9. But if you're new here, welcome in. If you're coming back, thank you for being here. Patrons get a new episode every Sunday, and then the rest of you get it the following Saturday, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you want to support this work and get the episodes early, or get the field guides or the worksheets I've built for each one, I will leave a link in the show notes. It's patreon.com/NYTN. The agency that produced these records was called, it's a long one, it was called the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Land. So Congress created it in March of 1865, 1 month before the Civil War ended, and they placed this under the War Department. So that means that the people that were running this agency, the people that were on the ground running this agency, were Army officers, and they were operating it in uniform, and they were reporting up to a military chain of command. They kept military-style paperwork, and that is part of the reason that these records survive in the detail that they do. Now, the Bureau operated across every former Confederate state, plus border states and Washington, D.C., from what I can see, from 1865 until Congress shut it down in 1872. So its job on paper, what it was supposed to do is help formerly enslaved people transition into freedom. But in practice, what it meant was it supervised labor contracts between these newly freed people and the planters who had maybe even owned them a year earlier, and performing marriages for couples whose unions had never been legal under state law, distributing rations during famine years that followed the war. Also, they opened schools because now we have formerly enslaved adults who wanted to learn to read and write and they weren't allowed to before. And also the Bureau was investigating violence. The violence against these newly freed people, these newly emancipated people in these years, it was constant. And so the Bureau was supposed to be the federal answer to it. Now, as you can guess, the Bureau was understaffed from the start. So by most measures of what the Bureau was supposed to do, I would say it failed. But every one of those activities I just listed generated paper, and the paper survives for the most part. And that is what we are excited about. The Bureau was not just, though, in one office in Washington, D.C. It was actually a network of small field offices spread across the South. So each one was assigned to a specific cluster of counties or parishes. So when you go looking for your ancestor, you are not searching one giant national database. You are actually going to be searching the records of the particular field office that covered the place where your people were living between 1865 and 1872. So step 1 is geography. Before you open a single record or even go looking for one, you need to know where your ancestor was, or maybe you don't. And so that would mean like pausing this part and kind of taking some steps back. But let's talk about if you do know where your ancestor lived. So there are 3 things you need to do in order. They are not optional, unfortunately, and they are not interchangeable. So we kind of have the order of operations when I taught math. I love talking about order of operations because it is a way of organizing our brains. Like, we've got to build the foundation of the house first before we put the roof on. So we're going to go to the foundation. So number one, you need to lock down your location. Your starting point is the 1870 census because that is the first federal census after emancipation, and it is the first place most African-American researchers where we will find our ancestors named. If you find your ancestor in 1870, and you can note the parish that they were living in, you're probably good to go because most freed people were not migrating very far in the first years after the war. So wherever they were in 1870 is almost certainly where the bureau, they'll be where that bureau is when that bureau came through. So once you have that location, you need to find the bureau field office that served it. So Family Search actually has the full directory online for free. You can find it by going to their catalog and searching the state name with the word freedmen. The field offices will come up listed alphabetically, and each one will tell you which counties, or in my case, parishes, because my family was in Louisiana, it covered. So for my family, I'm gonna I should take a step back. So it's video, and maybe you're listening just audio on the podcast. If you go to Patreon, you should be able to see the video too. So I'm going to be putting up some of these documents. So for my family, it was Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana. The number two thing you need to do is you need to search by the planter, not by the laborer necessarily. So this is tricky, and I think this is why it's easy to kind of give up on these records maybe before we've even started. So the name search on Family Search and Ancestry covers some of these documents, but it does not cover all of them. The indexing project is still ongoing, and a lot of contracts have never been transcribed into a searchable index. So maybe with AI, that will change. It will be easier for you to find your people. But if you type in your ancestors' first and last name into the search bar and nothing comes up, what I'm saying is do not assume that your ancestor is not on the page or doesn't exist in these records. Try something else instead. I'm going to tell you what to try. The labor contracts are organized by the planter. The contract was this legal agreement between one employer and a group of workers. So the planter's name sits at the top of the document, and then our ancestors' names are on the numbered list of laborers below him. So that is what happened for my ancestor. So if you know the white family that your ancestor was associated with after the war, or even the family they shared a surname with, search for that planter first. And I'm just going to take a second here. So my great-grandmother's last name is Perot. It was French. And the planter that my great-great-granduncle, he was working under, his last name was Perot as well. They have the same last name, especially in Louisiana. Things could get a little weird where you could have the owner of the plantation has the same last name as all of his illegitimate children. So maybe for you too, your ancestor is going to be inside that contract listed under the planter's name. So maybe knowing the last name of the owner of the plantation helps. So for me, that meant searching the Perot last name in Natchitoches Parish, 1867. And the contract that came up was signed by a planter named, I don't know how to say his name. I think it's French. I think it's maybe Cyrique. I don't know. I'm going to put it in the notes and maybe you can tell me. Perot. But on row 8 of the list of laborers under him, I found my man. I found Valery Perot. He's 27 years old, and he signed his name with an X. So that is my third great-granduncle. I may have other family that's in the Freedmen's Bureau. I haven't really gone looking, but this is one that was indexed that I found. So step 3, you need to read what is actually on the page. When you find the contract, the layout is going to look like a ledger. There is a header at the top with the planter's name and then the parish or the county or whatever. And then down the left side, you will see a numbered list of laborers. And I'll put mine on the screen with their ages, their sex, and a notation under each name that says either his mark or her mark. So that notation means that the laborer signed by an X rather than by a signature. And that notation itself is information because it tells you if they were illiterate, which under the laws that govern slavery in most southern states, that is exactly what you would have expected, even if they weren't really illiterate. Okay, if you catch my drift. So across the page from the laborers list, you're going to see the terms of the contract now. Their wages per month, the rations that the planter agreed to provide, the length of time that the contract is good for. It's usually 1 year. And then there's a separate column noting family members who were present on the place but not working. So these would be like very young children or elderly relatives. This is incredible information to have on our family. So at the bottom of the page, you will find the signatures. The planter signs and stamps his name with the title planter next to it, although I don't think he's doing a lot of planting. And the witnesses sign underneath. And then the bureau agent also has to sign to approve this contract. So this last signature is what makes it a federal document and what made it, in theory, enforceable, okay, is having that government stamp of approval. So what you are looking at on your computer screen when you read one of these contracts is the first written legal agreement most of our laborers in our family had ever been a party to in all their lives. A lot of these people have been on the same land, maybe working for the same family as enslaved people the year before. And this contract is the paper that turned the arrangement from slavery into employment. And it is the only document in the federal record where their names appear before 1870. By 1867, Valery Jr. is 27 years old. The Civil War has just ended. Slavery is over. And Valery Jr. is signing a Freedmen's Bureau labor contract in the same parish that my family has lived in for a very long time. So he signs by his mark. That contract's approved by a federal agent who has classified him by virtue of being on this paperwork at all as a freedman. So now he's officially a freedman. Now, for my family in Louisiana, I did have a lot of enslaved ancestors. Valery Perot Jr., as far as I can tell, was not enslaved. But the family were sometimes considered free people of color. Sometimes they were just censused as Black. Sometimes they were censused as Mexican. It's been strange to see how that shifts. We've talked a lot about this on my channel and on here. When I'm looking at this, I'm seeing one family showing up in 3 different federal records, roughly across one generation, getting classified as completely different things, but they're still in the Freedmen's Bureau record-keeping system. So even if your family is kind of complicated like mine, don't discount the fact that they could still be in this, because the Freedmen's Bureau records do things that no other federal source, I think, can do. They're catching people who maybe the census misclassified, the people who were maybe inside households that were counted differently across time. Maybe they're considered white here, Mexican here, Black here, mulatto here. So don't discount looking just because your family maybe has a convoluted story. And also the Bureau records are imperfect. They were created by an agency, I personally feel, that was deliberately undermined. I think clerks who misspelled names just really didn't care. They didn't care. So the question that I think about when I read these, who are these other people with my ancestor on these pages? Are these your ancestors who have been sitting on a microfilm roll for 106 years waiting for their name to mean something to someone again? It's exciting, it's upsetting, it's sad, but it kind of burns a fire in my belly a little bit, if you know what I mean. So if this is relevant to you, or if this episode helped you, this is your next step. Go to familysearch.org. In the catalog, search the state that your people were living in between 1865 and 1872. You might have to do a little bit of work before you can get to this point, okay? Then add the word freedmen to that. So you're going to find the field office that served their parish or their county. You need to open the labor contracts roll. Try name search first. If it comes up empty, browse by the surname of the planter that you know your ancestor was connected to. Your ancestor is probably in there. You could also do my other trick, which is to just go on to Ancestry. And once I have my ancestors in my tree, I will search that ancestor and see if somebody else has already done some of this difficult work, because when it's far back like that, you share this ancestor with a lot of people. So a lot of other people care about finding the details of this person too. You're not in this alone. You're not in this alone anyway, because I'm here for you, but you aren't in this alone. So the work may have already been done. And so if you find one of your ancestors in this, please send me a message. I want to hear about it. I might share it on my Patreon page if you want to do that. Patrons, I will leave in the show notes some links for the Southern States Freedmen's Bureau records and some other stuff that might be helpful for you. What else can I leave in the show notes that will help you? I'll toss some stuff in there. So the link will be in there, and if you're not on Patreon, come hang out with us. We're a community of people who love finding our ancestors, love sharing that information with each other, digging in. We're from all backgrounds, all ages. And new episodes of the podcast come out on Sunday mornings. And for everyone else, they're released that following Saturday. And so if this is the kind of work that you do or you want more of, please share this episode with somebody who needs it, because the more names that we can identify on these rolls, I feel like this is our duty, this is our job, and we need to be a good ancestor. So let me know what you find. Otherwise, we'll talk next week.